Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the armies of the North, general of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true emperor, Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show. Not on a Monday, not on a Tuesday, but for the first time I think maybe even on a Wednesday, 30th September. Show was originally meant to be going out on the Monday 28th. Unfortunately, due to events, I was not available because I was at previews, and Stuart would not have been available on Tuesday as a result of things as well. So it turns out now the show's been done this week on Wednesday, and it's just me, Andrew, unfortunately, because I was having a sort of a help with a guest host sort of lining up to help me in with Stuart. Unfortunately, they haven't been able to make it because, as usual, the internet is crapping out on us. So we'll hopefully see, maybe if that happens and sorts out, then somebody may be joining us halfway through the show. If not, though, you are going to be stuck with me, unfortunately, and just me going through this week's new releases that we've got. Coming up on the show, I have got the newest cinema releases going through. Quite a lot I've seen this week to go through. We have a sort of psychic thriller with Solace. We have a drama based on a book with Miss You Already. We have a drama based on true life story with Captive, and released just today. Wouldn't have been reviewed in the show normally, but released today was Ridley Scott's The Martian, so we'll cover that this week's show as well. Then we'll have our usual break and come back for the DVD and Blu-ray releases, which are not a lot this week. 2 releases covered, that is Spooks, The Greater Good, and Man Up, with good man Simon Pegg returning to the screen, and in a kind of romantic comedy, bit of a twist. We'll get to that when we get to that, and you'll see how I mean. So, as usual though, as myself, I'm probably going to screw this up, but I'm going to go straight on to this week's movie news I've got. Only a few pieces. Hope you are enjoying listening to the show. If you're listening to us live, you can join me, or listening to me live, you can join me in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You have your little speech icon there, and you can send me messages. Be kind, I'm on my own. I may not get to them particularly quickly because I am sort of dealing with things, setting up clips and such while also talking, so if I don't reply to you, I'm not ignoring you, I am just busy. If you're listening to us any other way, as I said before in other shows, thank you for joining us. You can send us feedback as well, mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com. You can find us on our website, mondaymovieshow.co.uk, facebook.com/mondaymovieshow, and you can find us on Twitter @mondaymovieshow. I'm on there as well @ahdvd, and if you do want to get Stuart and do want to maybe send a message to Stuart saying Andrew, it was terrible on the show, then you can tweet that to @cryptictadpole. I guess I'll get going on then, straight on with those pieces of news. First one is regarding it's a TV series, but it's linked to films. It is the TV series Game of Thrones. It's that writer George R.R. Martin allegedly confirmed at HBO's Emmy party this week that showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are planning a big screen Game of Thrones movie. There's nothing confirmed from any other sources. There have been sort of things said by other people and producers saying there's nothing being produced yet, but there's sort of speculation that this is going to be something they'll do after the series has run its course on the channel, on HBO. The question is when that's going to be, because it's currently filming its next season, its 6th season I believe, which actually brings it up to date with the books, so it's actually going to be overtaking the books that have been written so far. And how it's going to end, nobody knows. If it's going to end exactly how the books are, nobody knows. It's one of those things. But then obviously if they're going to do a film, maybe they won't finish it the same way as the books. I guess we'll see. Personally, I'm someone who does watch the show. I do think it manages to do an incredible thing for television. Television is kind of reaching at some points levels of cinematic things, and there was even an episode in the last season which was very cinematic, very, very good cinematic, great sort of horror sequence that was really impressive. So they definitely have the skill to make that come about. If they had a movie budget and did it with a movie, then they could only maybe make it even better and do something really incredible. So I'm up for that. Moving on to the next piece of news. Universal seems to be uncertain about their Pacific Rim sequel. There's been announcements today that they have actually cancelled its release date of August 2017 that they'd set for it, and instead have given it up to Pitch Perfect 3, probably because of the fact that the budget's a little bit less to sort of put together, and probably is a lot sort of simpler, easier to get a script and put it together, because I expect most of that with jokes and stuff will be ad-libbed. There's been nothing confirmed from the studio saying that Pacific Rim 2 won't happen, only that it's been removed from the schedule, but it's been speculated that it will go ahead, that Guillermo del Toro, writer and director, is finishing up a script that he wants to get finished, ready, everything fine, so he can actually do a film that will be as good as the first one. But there's been no sort of official confirmation yet as to what is happening with the project. So hopefully, fingers crossed. I love the first one. I know Stuart loved the first one. We're both looking forward to that. How about you? Anyone else out there? I'm gladly looking forward to that when it comes out, hopefully in 2017 still. Final piece of news is that Vin Diesel released a statement on Facebook, on his Facebook account, as he usually does. This time to quell rumours of a possible director being offered the role on Fast and Furious 8. There's been nothing confirmed yet for definite as anyone being, but there have been lots of rumours, people saying this person may have been offered, this person may be offered, and he's released this statement which I will read, which goes as follows. The fans of the Fast and Furious saga are the best fans in the world. Since I became the producer in 2008, you've been with me every step of the way, literally giving me feedback that proved invaluable. Thank you. My producing partner Neil would love for me to just sign off on a director, but this is too special a franchise, so these matters have to be very carefully handled. To be clear, no one has been offered to helm Fast 8 yet, let alone seen a script. Universal's been so good to me, so trusting of the vision. They have been like family. I proposed to the studio I would deliver one last trilogy to end the saga. I will announce the directors on my next post. So, did you hear it there? The one bit in particular? One last trilogy. So, planning to maybe do 3 more films. So we could see Fast and Furious 8, 9 and 10 coming out sometime in the next 5 years or so. I wouldn't be against that. I mean, I know some franchises go on too far too long. Fast and Furious 7 proved that the franchise is still good as far as I'm concerned. It's not brilliant, it's a big popcorn blockbuster thing, but it is what it does on the tin. It says it's going to entertain, it says it's going to be big, it's going to be blast, it's going to be loads of action, it's going to be ridiculous, and it is, but it's fun too, and it knows that. So, you know, it's that kind of a thing that you really, really can't guess what's going to happen with it. I mean, they could do something different. That's the thing they keep doing with the franchise, and that's what I like about it, and that's what a lot of other people like about it, and that's what keeps it fresh. So as long as they keep that up, I don't see a problem with them doing further films. So that's the end of the movie news this week. Not a lot to go through, but as we usually do as well, I'll go through quickly the UK box office top 10. Now, I have been off for recent weeks. The reason being that I did actually get married, so I was busy with that and other things, and so that's why I haven't been around for a little while. Stuart was filling the show with Stuart from Page to Screen. This week, though, obviously going through the top 10 means that there are some, because I've been a little busy, I haven't been able to see them all. So I'm going to have to go through, in particular, several they've got. At 10 is Bill, which is an animated film that I haven't seen, so I can't comment on that. And number 9 is Pixels, which is the Adam Sandler movie, which is a Christopher Columbus directed film, which is a sort of sees him taking on aliens attacking. It's a film which is not especially bad or poor, not in regards to being sort of directed to the effects and everything, but being an Adam Sandler film, it's typical humour that Adam Sandler has become very, very disappointing for actually doing. It's very, very outdated. It's quite sexist in some points, and I actually found it borderline offensive in a couple of occasions. So it's a film that some people are enjoying, definitely people are enjoying, because it's hanging around for a while. To make it still be in the top 10 after excuse me, my throat's been up, after being in there for a few weeks, it's still doing okay, but it's far from a sort of really impressive film that Adam Sandler really needs to get back on top. At number 8, still hanging in there as well, is Secret Cinema Empire Strikes Back. It's one of these things that's going to be going around for another few weeks because of the fact that it has dates set for the next month or so. At number 6 is one of the movies. Oh, sorry, number 6. Skipping over number 7, The Visit, which is a film I haven't seen because not only is it been out the time I've been busy, it's a horror film. I don't see horror films. Stuart sees horror films. If you want to know what Stuart thinks of it, then if you have a listen to a couple of weeks ago, he did a review of it. I don't know whether or not I'd go with his opinion because he and I do differ, but recently we've been agreeing, so maybe something that you want to go into with a bit of lowered expectations from what he said. Number 6, as I said, new entry this week for one of the movies we're reviewing in a moment, Solace. So I'll get to that in a moment. Number 5 is Inside Out. Believe it or not, I still haven't seen this. Yes, it's shocking. Just about everyone else has. That's why it's taken 39 odd million pounds at the UK box office alone. But I shall have to try and see if I can remedy that. Number 4 is a new entry for another film this week I'm covering in a minute, Miss You Already. So I'll get to that when I get that in a while. Number 3 is The Maze Runner Scorched Trials, which is a perfectly fine sequel, but it's not anywhere near as good as the first one. It does dumb things down. Same to with the Divergent series. It's got a similarity with that, where the first film was very good, very smartly thought out, very well put together, and didn't pander to the lowest common denominator action. Unfortunately, then the second one went straight for loads of action, and this one has done the same. But it's not a failure, it's just it's very disappointing to see it kind of stoop to that level when it didn't need to. Legend is at number 2, which is the Tom Hardy and Tom Hardy movie playing the Cray twins. It's a film which is full of 2 fantastic performances from Hardy, completely disappears into the roles. It is rated 18 for being particularly graphic, particularly violent, and lots of strong language, as you may imagine. And it's a film that is definitely worth seeing for his performance. It's a film that is an okay film. It could have been a better directed, better put together film, but it's elevated certainly by having him play the Crays and play both those roles absolutely brilliantly. So much so that when you're watching him, any scenes with him playing the both of them on the screen at the same time, obviously there's been effects used or something like that to filming to get him playing on both of them simultaneously. You completely forget about it. You're not watching Tom Hardy, you're watching the Cray twins. It's perfect. Which means the number 1 movie is still from last week, Everest, which I have seen despite being away when it was released. It's a film which it's one of these ones that there is sort of some trepidation as to how accurate and faithful it is to true events that happened. Obviously there are stories of this happening and people that went up Everest and not everyone made it back down, so that won't be in dispute as to who did and who didn't survive. It's a thing of that it's a film that the events are questionable according to the writer of the novel which it claims to be based on, but it's not a bad film. It's actually a pretty good film, and I thought I actually quite enjoyed it. The thing I thought was very well done and quite impressed me was that there wasn't this whole propensity of setting up red herrings of, oh, this person's got a family so they're going to die, this person's got this happen so they're not going to make it. It never handed to that, setting up the thing so you're thinking, oh, this person's doing the whole thing, alright, their family tick, they're going to be, this is their last trip tick, okay, and all that kind of thing. I actually didn't get any ideas all the way through who was and who wasn't going to make it, and that's quite refreshing, because a lot of the time when you watch film you get this thing of, oh, this person's not going to make it, this person's going to make it, and it kind of gets a bit sickening and repetitive. And for me, it was a nice change. It's not a fantastic film, it's not a big Oscar epic thing, it is a enjoyable Saturday night kind of popcorn film, but it's got some depth to it, some heaviness to it, because of the performances that you've got there. Josh Brolin's really good. Clark Gregg is there. Greg Clark, I can't remember. Sorry, getting names wrong. And you have sort of several actors and actresses in there, some of which get shortchanged a little bit because they have smaller roles. Keira Knightley is perfectly fine, nothing special to her, but she doesn't have a lot of sort of scenes to do. Most of her scenes are just sitting or lying, talking on the phone. And it's a solid, entertaining film which passes the time, and you come out and you go, wow, okay, that actually did, a really good job. So that is the UK's box office movie number 1 for this week, for the second week in a row. Is there going to be a movie that will top it this week off the spot? Well, we'll see what happens with. We'll go to the first movie I'm doing this week, which is Solace. It is directed by Alfonso Poyet. It is written by Sean Bailey and Ted Griffin. It is a story surrounding a FBI team led by Jeffrey Dean Morgan's agent Joe Merriweather. He is sort of putting together a team that are following several murders of people that have been committed in a particularly meticulous way, so much so as to leave no evidence, no clue and no trace as to what is going on with these victims and why they're being chosen, and particularly anything about the killer. He ends up taking his colleague, played by Abby Cornish, along to see an old friend of his who used to be a person who sort of guided the FBI in particular cases, because he is a psychic. The character John Clancy, played by Anthony Hopkins, is a very much a stoic man who doesn't really want to be involved, doesn't really want to use his gifts anymore, lives sort of very much out in the middle of nowhere. Eventually does decide that he wants to come in because of the fact that there are certain things about the case which do get his attention. Here's a clip.
Each victim was killed by a puncture wound at the base of the skull, inflicted by a 5-inch instrument. It went straight into the medulla oblongata. Immediate, according to the coroner. Painless execution.
These photos are all post-mortem.
A couple of them, they almost look alive, don't they?
Consistency number 2, no mistakes. Crime scenes so far have yielded no evidence of DNA, hair fibers, shoe prints, nothing.
No witnesses either. Ward lived in a secured building with a doorman, still no signs of forced entry.
On the site front, it's unheard of. There's no geographical, chronological, or astrological pattern to the murder. No robberies.
Other than that, though, I think we got a pretty good handle on this case.
John.
Yeah.
Robert Ellis, the kid in Mount Pleasant.
He was eating ice cream.
He was. Where do you want to start, John?
How about the beginning?
So, this is a film which has... Basically, it's a film which has all those elements of a thriller, but then they have thrown in this kind of, obviously, curveball element of the psychic thing. Though it turns out that John's character, the character played by Anthony Hopkins, is not exactly the only psychic, that there are other psychic elements involved to do with the killer. And it's the whole thing of them then looking into this while he's doing his psychic thing and them also doing the FBI thing. And it's an interesting thing of that it's a film which doesn't sort of play up the psychic thing. It shows psychic things, has them, and then you have the elements of it, but it never gives away too many things. It shows you lots of things. It's very cryptically done, very cleverly done. So it does get you intrigued when you see, and when we see full on what Anthony Hopkins' character sees. They're sort of these very cryptic, quick flashes of things are shown, which get your attention. You go, "Oh, what's that?" And then some of them actually a little bit shocking because of obviously dealing with death and murder, and they're very cleverly, cryptically done. The rest of the film is not quite to that level as these little snippets that are put in there, but it does hold together. It does keep going all the way through, and it is consistent because of the fact of the. What gets you engrossed in it is that while they're investigating this, there are issues coming out between the characters. You have Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who is the cop, or the FBI agent, who sort of lead on this and has issues himself with past things and stuff that's going on with him and his family. You have the whole thing of Anthony Hopkins' character and things that happened in his past and things that he's dealt with and stuff to do with his abilities and how strong or how weak they are, and why he left being a sort of a consultant. And then you have the whole thing of Abby Cornish playing the new partner who has no interest in sort of psychic abilities, doesn't believe this at all, thinks it's a whole load of hokum, and sort of starts to then question and wonder whether or not she is right to this or if it actually could be true and things. The whole thing then also comes to a point where you have the killer, who's not spoiling anything. There is quick glimpses early on. It's revealed to be Colin Farrell playing the villain, and he plays it with some interesting aspect to it, which makes the villain quite kind of interesting and believable, considering that it's quite a lot of stuff in the script and the film that could be taken to be almost comical in their idea. But because it's done in the way it's done, with a seriousness to it, it's treated respectfully, it's done properly, it's never done for a laugh, it's done to actually build tension and to do so. It's actually a very compelling drama which has this nice twist to it. It's got a sort of an indie film to it too, indie feel, very much kind of like things like Looper, the Bruce Willis thriller, time travel thriller a while ago, which kind of like a thriller which then added in time travel. So it's got that kind of feel to it where it's very grounded despite going out there. So if you do like that kind of thing, it's a film that's does seem to have had a very sort of basic release. It's had advertising but not much, and it's kind of sort of giving a very limited small showing, but I think people are finding it, and if not, you should go and try and see it, because it's a film that may need your support. So moving on to the next film this week, which is Miss You Already. It's directed by Catherine Hardwicke. It's written by Morwenna Banks. It's a story following the characters of Jess and Millie, played by Drew Barrymore and Toni Collette, respectively. The story follows them as they've been friends for years, since they were kids. Drew Barrymore is living in London, where she plays a kid who's obviously come from America, has her accent. Toni Collette plays, even though she is Australian, plays a British woman who's sort of befriended her when they were kids. They've grown up, been best of friends and everything. You find out that Millie, Toni Collette's character, is married, has a couple of kids with her husband, Kit, played by Dominic Cooper. Drew Barrymore's character Jess is married to her husband Jago, played by Paddy Considine, and they are sort of struggling because they're trying to have a kid and not having any success in that. Things all seem to be going fine, all kind of going normal, and then you have the whole issue of then, unfortunately, that Millie goes to get the screening, get tested and such, and finds that she is diagnosed with having breast cancer. This then leads obviously to the potential issues of the threats of this, what's going to happen, and the outcome as to what will happen with her. Here's a clip.
You found out a week ago, and you haven't told Kit yet.
I have to have chemotherapy, like, straight away. I'm going to be bald.
Well, lots of people are bald.
Oh, men are bald, Jess. Babies, E.T., not me. They might take my tits away.
They haven't said that yet.
Not for sure.
Well, I mean, how much cancer can you have? You've had all your checkups?
Well, I've been busy.
Oh, Jesus. Well, how could the tumor have gotten so big?
Because it's aggressive, like you. Jesus.
Well, is it contained?
In my body? Yes.
You should have gone back sooner.
Yeah, thanks. I hadn't figured that out.
You're right. That was a really stupid thing to say. I'm sorry.
Is it too late? Let's put these in the wash.
So it is a cancer drama. I don't know if you could sort of classify that as a genre, but it is a drama centering around obviously the illness of this and the situation surrounding their friendship and how it affects things. Thrown into the mix is the fact of that then Jess does become pregnant, but keeps this secret from Millie because she doesn't want to sort of upset her friend of saying, oh, everything's bad in your life, everything's good in mine, kind of thing. And so there's this kind of rift almost starts to develop between the two of them, as Millie is kind of self-destructing with this and dealing with the issues of it. Now, it is a film that does sort of follow through those conventions that you have in one of these tragedy dramas around something happening to a person, which is perfectly fine, because obviously there is some truth to the fact of how people react when things like this happen, and that's perfectly fine. The thing that it does have a problem where there's this whole thing where it goes off in a particular direction with one of the characters and things happen, and you kind of start going a bit, this is sort of in the middle. I found myself thinking, we don't need this. This feels as if it's forced. It feels as if it's filler. It feels as if it's been added in to sort of extend the time of the film, which is almost 2 hours long. Doesn't need to be. There's a sequence in the middle there to do with going away somewhere, which just it felt as if it did not need to be there, and actually found it kind of felt very out of place in the film and out of place for the characters. But the one thing though that the film should definitely be praised on is that it doesn't shy away from the badness of such situations, such an illness and things. It does show the issues of a thing, how that affects someone, and then eventually things that they have to go through. And I don't want to say what in particular, but things that go on, if this this illness and things, what happen and what can potentially happen, it follows them through in the film. And I'm not going to say more than that, because any more to do that would be spoilerish territory for the last sort of hour of the film. And I did like that it carried that through, that it didn't shy away from it. For a 12 rated movie, it does, I don't want to say get away with it, because it's not trying to do it for any reason other than to just be faithful and truthful to the story of what happens to someone when this happens. And for that I praise it. But I do think it is a film which definitely needed tightening up. It's a film which does it dilly-dallies around a bit in some cases and needed to be cut by at least a good 15-20 minutes. And I don't know if it is, because I don't see a listing here for where I'm looking at the details I've got, if it's based on a book or not. It does have a feel like it is, but if it's not, then that's a step up. If it is, it feels as if there should be something more in there for a almost 2 hour running time film. So it's worth seeing if you do like these. Ladies, be aware you will need to take tissues of some kind, because it will be a tearjerker at certain points. But it's a film that, if you've seen these kind of things before, this kind of sort of thing, then it doesn't necessarily bring anything new to it. It does sort of, as I say, keep you well informed of the reality of this, but other than that, it's kind of the standard fare that you have seen before, which is the thing that's a shame. It would have been nice to see it do some other things a little bit differently, or try something different. Even if it failed, it would have been nicer to see it then kind of going along the whole tick the boxes, there's these sequences, this has to be done, this has to happen. So worth seeing if you do like that. If you're not interested in that, you will possibly be bored. I'm talking to the male audience out there, because it's the kind of thing that the male audience won't see. But if they do see it and they're willing to go with it, then they may get engrossed and find that they actually do enjoy it and have a good time. I went with it, had fun. I enjoyed it and thought it was a very well done film, and as well the performances in it are very good. You've got Toni Collette is fantastic in it. Drew Barrymore is okay, nothing exceptional, but she's not given a lot to do in some scenes, considering that she is kind of the main character. Dominic Cooper and Paddy Considine are kind of, in fact Dominic Cooper is the one who's kind of gets shafted the most, because his character gets pushed to the side quite a bit. But everyone else, in the film, you can't fault any of them for their performances, more for the writing than performances, but a good solid film. So on to the other film, which was released last weekend. As I said, we'll cover The Martian as well, which is released today. Technically it's this week's releases, but we'll get to that in a moment. Captive, which is directed by Jerry Jameson. It's based on a screenplay by Brian Bird, which is again based on a book, this time by Ashley Smith. It is a true story of a single mother, played by Kate Mara, who is Ashley Smith. That it's a whole thing of that she is a mother who is no longer the guardian of her daughter. She is living in this sort of small apartment, finally trying to get her life on track, because of things have not been great for her in the past to do with drugs. This has resulted in her daughter being taken care of by her aunt, and she is sort of living this life and trying to get herself back on track. Although this seems to be sort of going well for her, she is sort of slipping back into drug addiction, and ends up being sort of taken hostage and held hostage by Brian Nichols, played by David Oyelowo, who has recently escaped from a court hearing after being sentenced for a murder. Here's a clip.
You found out a week ago, and you haven't told Kit yet.
I'm Ashley. I lost everything because of meth. Said I was an unfit mother, took away my little girl. Every time I do it, I think this is the last time I can control this. And I do it again. I just can't stop.
Ashley, have you heard of this book? The Purpose-Driven Life?
Oh, yeah, I have.
It can help. Help me.
Thanks.
So this book that she's been given in that clip previously, she actually tries to throw away but ends up receiving it still again. She has it there when she's being held prisoner by Nichols, who ultimately ends up getting her to read it to him. He is sort of mulling over the whole thing, the situation of what's going on, while there is in the news, he's watching on the TV and things going on with the police trying to find him, trying to track him down, you know, a manhunt going on around the county. Things are all sort of going not too badly between the two of them. It's a little tense at times, but he is a man who is there very much questioning what he's doing, and he orders her to then start reading elements from this book. And we see sort of quick moments of her reading elements, and we get voiceover of her reading certain phrases and things from this book, which starts to then question whether or not he should be doing what he's doing, and starts to sort of maybe sort of turn the tide a bit. The thing is with this film, it is very much a TV movie of the week kind of thing. You have Kate Mara in there, who is a big actress now, maybe has been sort of given a chance to do this as a small film. It is something that doesn't look like it took a long time to film. It's very much filmed mostly in one location. You have David Oyelowo, who is perfectly fine in the film as a kidnapper, and you have some good performances from the two of them, mostly hold the screen for the majority of the time. The thing that I did have an issue with is, for its running time, which is only an hour and a half long, it could have actually done more of the whole thing of the two of them talking and her sort of maybe getting into his head a little bit and that kind of questioning things. I would have loved to have seen this done like that, with more focus on that. There's sort of a setup at the beginning which is done, which takes a little time to develop things and set them up. I would have actually been happy to have just seen the elements as we are sort of introduced to the character of Ashley Smith, to her as she's kidnapped, because that doesn't obviously happen for a little while in the film. I would have thought it would be better to be just done that, have her kidnapped, and then have the whole film be her and him talking, and more of this, because it does have this thing of that it's a film which references God at certain times and the question of that and belief and faith, but it doesn't really delve into that. And as someone who's not into that personally, I'm not a believer, I'm not a religious person, I do find that there are films that actually I think are very good films which delve into the matter and feature characters and people that have that. And I felt that there was scenes in there which it screamed that it could have done more of this. It could have actually, brought up the question of that and shown how she talked to him, and this kind of raised, alarms in his head saying, I shouldn't be doing this or something. And I would have loved to see it. It very much quickly goes from a hostage situation to a police hostage situation, and I really would have liked to have seen it develop from one to the other a lot more gradually than it does in the film. So it is a thing that I'm actually surprised it got a cinematic release. When I saw it, there was myself and the person I went with to see it, no one else in the whole screening, which is a bit of a shame because it does deserve a bit more than that, but I can't say I'm surprised because it's not had much advertising. It's got a very small release, limited release, and it really is something that you would kind of see on a TV movie basis, especially as running time kind of says it was made for TV and not much else. And it doesn't have to be. It's perfectly fine. Didn't need to be in a cinema, but if you're watching it either in cinema or if you're watching it when it's shown on the home screen, it will be as well received either way. It's not a bad film, it's not a great film, it's average, but it's a slightly sort of better end of average. So as I said, another film released this week, technically now rather than last week. The movies we would do this week would have just been for last weekend, but The Martian has been released today on September 30th, a Wednesday, as usual, unusual release date. It is the adaptation of the book by Andy Weir by Drew Goddard, who's written the screenplay, and it's directed by Ridley Scott. So the man Ridley Scott, the great man Ridley Scott, as anyone who knows his films will know, a lot of his films cover this whole subject of humanity and people and how they are at their worst, at their best, and such. Well, here you have a situation where, set in the not too far distant future, man has reached Mars. They have been travelling to Mars, the third mission of several ships that are being sent over decades. The crew is there on the surface. Amongst them is Mark Watley, played by Matt Damon. The crew is sort of in their habitational habitat structure that's been designed to sort of survive there for them for so many months while they're there. They have to do an emergency evacuation at the beginning of the movie because of severe storms that have raised up and will actually be too extreme for them to be able to survive. So they are all escaping. Unfortunately, Mark is hit by a piece of debris, is considered and left for dead. The rest of the crew gets up to their ship, heads back to Earth. He, though, then wakes up the next day, very low on oxygen, manages to get back to the hab and finds himself stuck there, trapped there, obviously, with no way to escape and with very many sort of diminishing supplies. He's sort of living there on his own and starts looking then at plans of what he can do, things he can do. Manages to get the attention of the people on Earth, even though they cannot communicate through, they pick up things on satellites. And then back on Earth we see kind of the fallout of this with NASA and the head of NASA, played by Jeff Daniels, who is there sort of the head of NASA, trying to figure out what they're going to do to be able to actually rescue and save and keep Mark Watley alive. Here's a clip.
If we could talk to Mark, we would tell him to stay put and to trust that we are doing everything in our power to bring him home alive.
Don't say bring him home alive, Vincent.
You know what? These interviews aren't easy.
Annie?
No more Vincent on TV. Copy that.
76 kilometers. Am I reading that right?
Yes, sir. Mark drove 2 hours straight away from the hab, did a short EVA, and then drove for another 2.
You didn't load up the oxygenator or the water reclaimer?
Every 41 hours, there's a 17-minute gap.
I want that gap down to 4 minutes. Let's make it happen. Bruce, what's the earliest we can get a pre-supply there?
It'll take 9 months.
3 months.
3?
You're going to say it's impossible, and then you're going to do the math in your head and say something like the overtime alone will be a nightmare.
The overtime alone will be a nightmare.
Get started. I'll find you the money.
We'll do our best.
Mark dies if you don't.
So, as you heard that clip there, fairly blunt performance from Jeff Daniels. And the thing is, it's quite sort of fairly blunt performances from everyone in the crew. Even though you have Matt Damon there, who is, throughout the film, recording kind of a video journal diary of what's going on for him, so that if anyone does find him in the future, they'll know what's happened. And that actually does then add a lot of humour, because his dialogue, his character is actually using a lot of humour to sort of break the tension in the scenes he's going through and what he's dealing with. And it works. It really does work. You'd think it maybe would be a bit much. You get these whole films where they have dialogue where there's one-liners that are very cheesy and out of place, and it doesn't feel right. But it does feel very right, and that's largely through, I think, Matt Damon's performance, who is very good at holding the screen, especially as the sequences that are all on Mars obviously are just him, no one else there. You have the scenes back on Earth with Mission Control and such, and the scenes on the ship returning with the crew, who are amongst them in the cast, an incredible cast. You have in amongst there Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig, Michael Pena, Sean Bean, Kate Mara, Sebastian Stan, Chiwetel Ejiofor. The list does go on, and there are a lot of people. The issue with that is that sometimes then there are people on the Earth side who do get a little bit shortchanged for time on the screen, for some of their characters not having a lot to do. The character in particular, Kristen Wiig, doesn't really get a lot to do in some scenes. She is just there to sort of maybe ask a question and that's it. I don't know how this is sort of dealt with in the book, if it's adapted to that faithfully, if it makes it up, if it adds characters, if it's subtract characters. I have no idea. It could have done with maybe a little bit more tightening up of the characters then on the Earth side, but that's a little niggle. It is Ridley Scott back to doing great films after his last one, which was the really quite awful Exodus Gods and Kings. This is the whole thing of the character on Mars, if he will make it back, if he will get there, what they're going to do about it. And it is that kind of, it's Ridley Scott kind of doing the Ron Howard, Robert Zemeckis thing with sort of Apollo 13 and that kind of thing, and it's very similar to that sort of in the story structure and that disaster situation. What are they going to do? It does have this thing of that it obviously spaces over a long period of time, things going on. I did find that sometimes, because it has one of these things where it pops up saying day so many days, and towards the end I found it did really jump quite a bit. I was kind of finding myself thinking, have they cut something out of this? Because it is a film it's not a short film. It's 2 hours and 20 odd minutes, and I maybe think there's been scenes that were maybe stripped from that because they found that they were trying to make the film get it shorter, too long, and so then had to find themselves cutting bits which maybe were a necessary evil. But the thing I do like about that is when you make an adaptation of a book, it should always be very condensed. It should always be a lot in there that you have to struggle to get it down to under 2 hours, to a 2-hour film. And Ridley Scott knows this. He knows what kind of absolutely has to be in. He's good at this. He's done this for 30 odd years, and he is back to being the great Ridley Scott again. So this is a film that if you like Ridley Scott, if you like a disaster film, if you like science fiction, even if you don't like science fiction, if you just like a human tragedy story that's good, it's entertaining, it's funny, and it's fun to watch, and it's a film that there'll be tense moments when you'll hold your breath, and it's a film that does that, and it does it all very, very expertly. It's a very, very nicely, excellent put together film. I think it will be in my top 10 films of the year. I look forward to seeing what Stuart will say in it, because on the next show, which we'll be doing hopefully on Monday, Stuart will be giving his review of The Martian, and I hope that he enjoys it as much as I did. So that's it for this part of the show, as I'm going to go away for just a moment, play you an advert for the From Page to Scream horror show, and I'll be back in just a moment with this week's shortened DVD and Blu-ray releases.
There was a real sense of you were doing something wrong, but that did give it that feeling of excitement.
When the reveal of the film happens, that's when it just becomes absurd.
And the atmosphere and just the sense you get whenever you go into it is undeniable.
It did absolutely zero for me, which could be for the hype.
What we've just discussed there is just scratching the surface on it.
Hi, I'm Eric England, the director of Contracted, and you're listening to From Page to Scream, the horror show.
So, on to this week's DVD and Blu-ray releases. Only a couple of releases, as I said at the start of the show. We have the TV to the big screen adaptation from Spooks the Greater Good with the MI5 UK spy service. And then we have a comedy drama with Simon Pegg in Man Up. So, as usual, go through this week's DVD and Blu-ray top 10 before we go through those. At number 10, starting with the second best exotic Marigold Hotel. It looks as if it's maybe made a jump up the chart because it's maybe come down in price this week. It's a perfectly good film for a sequel. It is more of the same, nothing exceptionally brilliant about it. In fact, nothing particularly added to the film different than the first one, except for the addition of Richard Gere in a role. And it's perfectly fine. It has more of the same. If you like the first one, you'll like the second one. If you've not seen the first one, you may see this, find you enjoy it, and then think, I'll go back and get the first one. It's not a film you have to have seen the first one, but it does help. Number 9, still hanging around, and really, I can't believe this is still around. Home. The reason I can't believe it's around is because I really was not impressed by it. Didn't think it was especially brilliant. I didn't laugh once at it. I thought it was actually the weakest of DreamWorks animation films, and I'm surprised that it's still selling. Because I wonder who's buying it now that hasn't bought it already, and why? At number 8 is Cinderella, which is Kenneth Branagh's adaptation. Unfortunately, I haven't seen this yet still, so I can't comment on it. Stuart did say that it's a bit of a disappointment, and it's one that's maybe one to miss if you're not really a big fan of it, or you're not really desperate to see it. At number 7 is a duo of Pitch Perfect and Pitch Perfect 2, which we'll get to in a little bit because of reasons that'll become apparent in a while. And number 6 is a new entry for The Flash, the complete first season, which is a TV series. We don't go for TV series, but I am going to say, of all the TV shows that started last year, this was my personal favourite, the best one. That's enough to me. If you haven't seen it, you like comic book films, you like sort of superhero things, then give it a shot, because you'll probably like it, and it's very, very entertaining. Number 5, a new entry for Big Game, which is the Samuel L. Jackson sort of Icelandish or Swedish, I'm not sure which one, but film with him playing the president who is sort of on the run after a team of people are trying to capture and kill him, and he's left with this kind of 7-year-old kid who's on the trials to defend him, and it's really kind of B-movie, terrible moments, terrible dialogue. It's a bit ridiculous, and honestly, wait for it to come down in price if you're absolutely desperate to see it. Don't bother with it in this new week, because it's not worth it. Talking about the films earlier on, Fast and Furious 7 has dropped slightly to number 4. I'm a big fan of the Fast and Furious franchise. I've been following it since it very started 15 years ago. God, I feel old. And it's a film series that I really enjoy. As much as it is a big popcorn dumb action film, it does have characters, it has a history with the characters, and I enjoy it. And I think it's not the best of the franchise. That is Fast and Furious 5, which is the best and still the best. A great heist film as well as being about cars and racing. But it's definitely a film, if you are fans of the franchise, been following it since it started or any point and got into it, it won't disappoint. Number 3 is new entry. Highest new entry is yet to come still, but this is pretty close, which is John Wick, the Keanu Reeves action thriller film. It is a revenge flick kind of film with a little bit of a twist. He's perfectly fine in it. It's actually one of Keanu Reeves' better sort of films that he's done in recent years. It is a film that doesn't really have a lot of dialogue and stuff. It is purely an action film, lots of guns, lots of shootouts. It's a small budget film, which is a film it did gain appreciation from me the second time I saw it more than the first time, so maybe not gonna sort of hit home with everyone first, but I do actually think it's one that's interesting, and I do recommend people see it if they like the sort of the old kind of 80s style action revenge films, because it holds true to a lot of those films. Dropping down from last week, number 1 to number 2 is Avengers Age of Ultron. A lot of mixed bag reviews to this. I'm just going to say basically I liked it, I enjoyed it. It is more of the same. The first Avengers film was this big amazing thing that took all the characters they'd had so far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, put them all into one film, and they work together, and this does more of the same. It's not brilliant, it's not bad, it is just okay, and that's fine, because you can't really follow the Avengers and expect it to be the same amazing massive thing. It is all these characters that you know now, and just them together in one film, and it's more of the same. The world's in danger, they're going to go off and save it. Of course that's going to happen. So I don't have a problem with it. Some people do, but I thought that it was perfectly fine, and which means that the number 1 movie on DVD and Blu-ray this week is Pitch Perfect 2, and I haven't seen it, so unfortunately I cannot comment on it. Stuart is the one who's reviewed this. I do want to see it, my other half wants to see it, so at some point I have no doubt very soon that I will see it. And I've heard from Stuart that it is a sequel which is not as good as the first one. It is kind of the whole thing of the issue with sequels, where it tries to outdo the first one by doing more of the same and not adding much to it, but it does seem to be doing well for itself. Fans of the first one, it's got a big pull behind it, and that seems to be more than enough to help get it to the number 1 spot. Will it be there next week? I guess we'll find out. Will one of these 2 movies that I'm going through this week now take it off the spot? Well, let's find out with the first one, Spooks the Greater Good. It is the adaptation, or continuation rather, of the TV series, the BBC TV series that ran for 10 years. Gone from the TV series are most of the actors and characters that you had in there. This time we're following a newly introduced character played by Kit Harington of Game of Thrones fame, who plays Will Holloway. He is a person who was formerly hired by the MI5 agency. He was disgraced and let go by Harry Pierce, the only sort of remaining big character from the TV series, played by Peter Firth. He is back sort of in charge of things going on when a prisoner during transport to the Americans escapes and is on the run. So of course Harry Pierce is being investigated and ends up going on the run himself, because things are not quite as they appear all within MI5. And of course then that means that Will is contacted, sent on a mission, and begrudgingly ends up agreeing to meet with Harry. Here's a clip.
What am I doing here, Harry? I need to find someone outside the service that I can trust. It's a short list when you take off the drunk, the mad, and the dead. It's quite telling, the fact that the closest thing I have to a friend is someone who thinks I ruined his life.
You're finished. You're coming in.
Kazim's escape was sanctioned by someone at the very top of the service. By one of the people who asked you to track me down. That's why I had to disappear.
You had Kazim. You let him go.
I had no choice. He's our only connection to the traitor. Once he's in the system, he'll be silenced.
He's planning an attack. If they can't stop him, it'll be on you.
This is bigger than Kazim, Will. Someone wants to destroy the service itself.
So the thing with Spooks is that I'm a fan of the series. I watched it from the beginning to the end, all 10 years of it, and loved it. It is a series that it's one of these rare series where it doesn't necessarily have characters that last from beginning to end. A lot of shows will keep the same actors in. This is a series that it didn't. It did get rid of characters every now and again. People left. Occasionally they came back, but not very often. And then you had new people came in, and that was the thing. So the film bringing in new characters, while meaning that it's sort of continuing from the series, also means in a good way that you can watch this without having seen the series. You may watch it and then find that you get curious about the series, go back and watch it and find that you add, new depths to it. The problem is with it, though, that it's being done as a cinematic film. It has moments where it does kind of reach for those cinematic highs, and I mean the difference between cinema and TV. TV does a lot with very little. It manages to do a lot, but it never really gets to the quality that a cinema film can if it's doing a really well job. The problem with this is that this is still very much a TV production on a film budget and a film scope. It doesn't quite really reach for those heights. It kind of goes, maybe I'll get for them, but instead of going, I want to get that, I want to get to that, I want to be that. That is the problem with it. Which is the thing that, watching it on DVD and Blu-ray, it's perfectly fine, because it works more that. In the cinema, that was a bit of a disappointment. On DVD and Blu-ray, watching at home, it's a lot more in tune with the TV series. As much as it is cinema, it's a widescreen film. It's shot. It basically feels like a feature of the TV, but it's bigger than TV. It doesn't feel. In cinema, it felt like it was below cinema. On DVD and Blu-ray, it feels above DVD. So it's kind of in the middle ground, which means then it's better on DVD and Blu-ray than it is in cinema. I don't mean it's a bad film. I think it's perfectly fine. It's good. I was entertained. I didn't see certain things coming. I did see other things coming. I thought that it had a nice round out to the series. I hope that maybe if it's done well enough, there will be future films, because it's a franchise that it does always sort of manage to redevelop itself, redesign itself, and come up with something new. And there's always the possibility this will happen. I hope it does well and that happens. I have my doubts, but I like to see more of it. And if it's like this, it would be a little bit disappointing that it can't, just get there where it needs to be cinematically great. But that's nothing. There are films that don't even try that far, don't even try as hard as this does, and completely fail. So I'm perfectly fine with this. I just wish it could have been that little bit more. So the other film on DVD and Blu-ray released this week I'm covering is Man Up. It is written by Tess Morris and directed by Ben Palmer. It is a rom-com film that, it's kind of horrible to fit it into that cliche, but that cliche genre. But it is the rom-com film that features the main character of Nancy, played by Lake Bell, doing a remarkable British accent. She is American, but does a great British accent in the film. She lives in London. She's having no luck finding anyone to sort of have a relationship with. She's on a train coming to London, ends up sitting across this girl who's talking to her and has this book, book that sort of is all about relationships and things. And it turns out this book is actually not really for reading and guidance instruction. It's actually for a sort of a flag, a signal to show this woman is meeting someone on a blind date. The train arrives in London sometime later. Nancy has fallen asleep, wakes up, sees this book on the table, runs off after this girl trying to find her to give this book back to her, and accidentally runs into Jack, played by Simon Pegg, unexpectedly. Here's a clip.
Hey, what a great way for us to recognise each other. What a great idea. Although I think it would have been pretty hard to miss you underneath that huge clock.
No.
What do we do in terms of saying hello? I've never known. I'm not what to picture. Is it a handshake? Or is it a hug? I mean, is it formal? You know what? We're adults. Let's just go in. Oh, too soon for that. Nope. Hello there. So, oh my God, that's not your emergency exit phone call already, is it? Because I haven't had a chance to use any of my best lines yet. That wasn't one of them. If you were worried, I tell you what. Listen, I'll handle this, madam. Hello, caller. Yes, we have met, and I am not a complete psychopath, and we've really hit it off. And she will call you later with all the gory details. So thank you for calling, and goodbye. Done. All right. So book, check, and clock, check, and blind date, check. So usually when, in this situation, I would say something and then maybe you'd say something back, and then we talk a little bit about what we're going to do and exchange ideas, sort of quid pro quo, Clarice. In hindsight, that wasn't the best impression to do on a first date, because it brings to mind... Anyway, listen, I'm talking a lot, and I know you can sense it, so I'm going to just keep going with it, and I'm going to start the bidding with a drink on London's fashionable South Bank. As the book says, what are you waiting for?
I am waiting for you.
Good.
Yeah.
So, it's a comedy drama, romantic comedy drama, which is... Not drama, sorry, drama. Romantic comedy, which is one of these things... It's one of these genres that is very cliched. If you've seen one, you've seen most of them. I saw this in the cinema, actually, originally, when it came out. And I hadn't seen this. I hadn't seen this kind of this realism to it, this interesting characters, this whole thing of you have the characters that have their quirks but aren't too quirky. You have this whole thing of the sequences where they meet other people on this kind of night, go out, and they go out on this date even though she's sort of not telling them the truth, and things happening, and it reveals this whole thing of this whole thing of not everyone tells the truth, and this whole thing of them meeting his ex and things going on there, and it has moments in it that genuinely just are endearing to watch, and the characters are fun. They have this realism to them, as I said. You have great performances there from Lake Bell and Simon Pegg. It's all sort of surrounding them and the whole things of what's going on in their real lives and what they're not telling each other, and obviously her not telling him that she's not the person he's going on a blind date with, but him not telling her things, him pretending to be this great big successful person when he's not, and all this sort of this false sort of facade that he's got on, which is really quite good. And it's this whole thing of the two of them playing at that while they're on this kind of fake date night thing, this fake blind date, and it just turns into a really enjoyable film that flows by perfectly. The running time on it is not an hour and a half, so it's not a long film, but it feels like it just flies by, and I loved it. Loved the characters, thought they were great, thought the performances were great. I thought it's a very great little nitty film, and I really would recommend this to anyone who's interested in a good comedy. I mean, Simon Pegg, it's not a laugh out loud comedy Simon Pegg role typical. It is a romantic comedy, but you get those comedy elements in there mixed in with the romantic bit, and that's it. It's cute and fun. It works, and it deserves to be seen. So that's it for this week's show. As I said, there were only these two releases this week. Not a lot on there. Possibly more next week. We'll see. including some big cinema releases. As we've already said, The Martian, but next week's show you'll be able to get Stuart's view on the film. As well as that, also be covering another film which I will go through right at the very end of the show, because that's the clip that I will say goodbye with. But as usual, going to end out with some TV movies coming up what's left of this week. On E4 on Friday the 2nd of October at 9 p.m. is J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, which is a big Star Trek fan. I do really like that. It's a film that kind of did everything that Star Wars had done 25 years before and Star Trek had been trying to do for 25 years. It finally did it, and this is one that fans and non-fans, people that aren't interested, seem to really enjoy. The other film is Christopher Nolan, the man, he who brought Batman back, and in such great style in Begins, Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. Before that though, he did a little film with Guy Pearce and Carrie-Anne Moss called Memento. It's on Saturday the 3rd of October. It is a very odd time for this one. It's 1:20 a.m, so it's Saturday night, Sunday morning on Film 4. And it's definitely a film, if you haven't seen it, worth checking out. It is a film that's very odd because it's not in chronological order. It's shown in sequences backwards, and that seems odd, but when you see it, you'll understand what I mean. And that's the whole thing. It's to do with the character and their memory issues, which is why it's done in that way. So my TV movie of the week is, of those two, I'm going to have to say Memento. My movie of the week, technically it would be Solace, because that was the films we would have been covering this week. I am going to say The Martian though, because The Martian is a fantastic film that is one of those ones that will appeal to everyone. Solace though, if you have a chance, go and see Solace. It is a decent performance. It's one of these kind of B movies turned A movie, and if you get the chance, go see both in a double bill. Thank you for listening to me this week. Hope I haven't been waffling on too long and you got bored of me and turned off. If you're still with me, thank you very much. Hopefully Stuart will be back with me next week. It'll be the two of us again, and we'll go through several movies out, including, as I say, his review on The Martian, and I'll also be reviewing The Intern, which is the new comedy with Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro, the latter playing the mature intern to Anne Hathaway's new sort of the boss of a new company which has decided to take on an aging intern. It's a very odd film, very odd idea, but a nice idea, and I'm going to have to say, actually, I've seen it, I enjoyed it as much as I've seen any of these films this week and enjoyed. So it's one that it'll be good to go through that next week, but already it's a good film. And I'm going to leave you with a clip of that just now. So until next week, hopefully on Monday, check out mondaymovieshow.co.uk for the latest update when we know, you'll know when we are going to be on. Until then, bye bye.
You should go over. Push the clip.
Hey, look, here she comes. Watch how she won't even. Hey, Beck, what's up? You look really nice. How long can a woman be mad at you for?
Well, it kind of depends on what you did.
Well, first of all, nothing on purpose. We were going out for a minute. Thought she was cool. I really liked her. But then I sort of accidentally slept with her roommate.
That doesn't help.
I didn't know she was a roommate. I met her out. How would I know that?
Hey, Nick.
Ben, tell me.
So I know you.
I don't know this stuff. You're older. You've been through a lot. I mean, you have a lot of experience. How long do you think she'll be mad at me for?
I assume you talked to her, apologized, told her how much she means to you.
Well, You
didn't talk to her? What'd you do? Send her a tweet?
No, of course not. I texted her 1 billion times. She didn't answer. So then I emailed her, but it was a nice email. It was a long one, well thought out. Subject line, I wrote, "I'm sorry," with a ton of O's. So it was "I'm sorry," with the sad emoticon where he's crying, the side of its little cheek. I should probably actually just talk to her, huh? Obviously.
Can't imagine it would hurt.